The Roman soldier's letter. They found it buried in the damp soil of northern Britain, a sliver of thin wood, no thicker than a coin, with faint lines scratched by a stylus nearly 2,000 years ago. The ink had long faded, the fibers warped by rain and time, but the words were still there, barely. A message from a soldier of Rome to someone he loved, written in the winter of the year 102. And it reads like this.
To my dearest Flavia, the nights grow long here at Vindolanda, and the frost settles on the stones like ash. I think often of your garden, the olive trees, the sound of your laughter among them. I have sent you the brooch you asked for, though the merchant cheated me, as they always do when they smell the cold on a man's cloak. Tell our son that his father serves well, though the winds here could flay the skin from a god. I will write again when the snows melt. Gaius.
Those were the last words Gaius ever wrote. The letter was never sent. The handwriting is uneven, hurried in places. You can almost feel the breath of the man who wrote it, hunched over a small table in some flickering barrack, his fingers stiff from cold, his ink freezing as he dipped the stylus again and again into the little pot beside him. It must have slipped between floorboards or been left on a table as the garrison packed up to move north. For centuries, it slept in the soil of the fort, through the rise and fall of empires, through the quiet reclaiming of the land by moss and grass and rain. But to understand this letter, you have to understand the place it came from. Vindolanda was not a grand city, not even a proper town. It was an outpost, one of hundreds scattered along the Roman frontier, built from timber and stone. Its men came from all corners of the empire, Spain, Gaul, Germania, even North Africa. They were sent to the farthest edge of the known world, to a place where the sky itself felt heavier, the ground cold and wet beneath their sandals. Imagine the sound of it. Not the marble splendor of Rome, but the low, constant wind pushing through rough wooden walls, the clatter of armor being polished by the same hands that once picked olives, the distant shouting of traders and the bleating of goats. And above all, the silence, that long gnawing quiet of a land too wide, too wild to ever be truly conquered. Gaius wasn't a commander. He wasn't one of the men whose names carved history into stone. He was an auxiliary soldier, one of thousands. His pay was late more often than not, his boots worn thin, his loyalty tested by distance and frost. But he wrote to his wife anyway, because sometimes the smallest act of remembering, the act of writing home, was the only way to survive a world that wanted you to forget who you were. Archaeologists later found dozens of letters buried alongside his, the Vindolanda tablets they called them, scraps of wood covered in fading ink, voices of the past. Some are mundane. One man complains about the shortage of beer. Another begs for socks, shoes, and undergarments. A woman named Claudia Severa invites her friend Sulpicia Lepidina to her birthday party. You can almost see her smiling as she writes, the ink still wet when she presses her seal into the wax. And that's what makes these letters so powerful. They aren't stories of emperors or wars or victories. They're glimpses of life. People worrying about their families, longing for warmth, missing home. It's not history in the grand sense. It's humanity preserved in mud. It's strange, isn't it, to realize that even 2,000 years ago, people were doing the same small things we do now, complaining about the weather, missing someone, hoping for mail. There's a kind of immortality in that, not the grand kind that emperors chase, but the quiet kind that ordinary people leave behind without meaning to. If you close your eyes, you can almost picture Gaius writing. The small oil lamp beside him guttering in the draught, the smell of sweat and smoke and wet leather, a companion asleep in the corner, boots still on, the fort's walls creaking under the wind. He dips his stylus again, scratches another line, then stops. Maybe he hesitates, unsure what else to say. Maybe he hears a horn in the distance and sets the letter aside, meaning to finish it later. But later never came. The Romans abandoned Vindolanda eventually, moving north to build the Great Wall that still bears the emperor, S-name, Hadrian, S-Wall. But some things stayed. The mud kept its secrets. The words waited. And when they were finally unearthed, 19 centuries later, They were read by scholars who realized they were holding humanity itself in their hands. You can almost imagine the moment. A team of archaeologists kneeling in the damp soil, brushing away layers of earth, revealing a sliver of ancient wood. And then the words, faint, uncertain, begin to appear. It's not Latin carved in stone, not a command or a decree, but a letter home. A man writing about his wife's olive trees, his son's smile, the wind. And just like that, the world of Gaius breathes again. When you think about it, that's the strange gift of history. It's not just about remembering, it's about recognizing. Recognizing that they were us, that the distance between a Roman soldier and a man today is thinner than it seems. Gaius's world was rough. The soldiers lived in wooden huts with turf roofs. Fires burned low to save fuel. Meals were simple: bread, porridge, salted meat. On good days, they might roast a bird or share a jug of imported wine. On bad days, they patched cloaks, mended boots, and cursed the cold. Letters like his were their one connection to warmth. The post system of the Roman Empire was vast. Runners, riders, and ships carrying words from one edge of the known world to another. But letters could be lost so easily. A courier robbed on the road, a storm at sea, a simple oversight. So many messages never made it home. Gaius's was one of them. What makes his letter remarkable isn't its content, but its survival. Ink on wood, something so fragile, outlasting marble, iron, even the empire that created it. And that's what I find beautiful, because letters aren't just messages. They're time machines made of words. They carry the warmth of a hand, the weight of a thought. They travel forward, sometimes further than anyone could imagine. When I read Gaius's letter, I think about Flavia, the woman who never received it. Did she wait for news? Did she imagine him alive somewhere beyond the horizon? Did she ever stop believing that one day a letter might come with his name on it? We'll never know. But there's something haunting in that not knowing, something deeply human, because that's what love is sometimes, a kind of waiting that never ends. And yet Gaius did reach her in a way. In 2,000 years later, we speak his words aloud. We picture the olive trees, the cold stones, the flickering lamp. His world becomes ours for a moment. Maybe that's the point of all this. That history isn't tea about remembering the powerful, but about listening to the quiet ones. The ones who wrote letters that no one read, who loved and hoped and feared, just like we do. Somewhere under a glass case in the British Museum, Gaius's letter sits under soft light. The wood is dark and fragile, but the words are clear enough to read if you lean close. You can see where his stylus pressed harder, maybe when he wrote her name. You can see the hesitation, the breath caught between thoughts, and maybe that's why this letter matters so much. Because it reminds us that everything we do, every note, every message, every act of love, might one day be the only trace of who we were. In the end, Gaius's story isn't just about Rome. It's about all of us. About the simple need to be remembered. About the longing that bridges every distance. About the idea that words can survive what people can't. And tonight, as you hear his words echo across centuries, maybe you can feel what he felt. The cold creeping in, the ache of distance, the hope that somewhere someone is thinking of you. These were the last words of Gaius, a soldier of Rome, a man who once stood at the edge of the world and thought of home. And tonight, 2,000 years later, his words still reach us. Good night, and sleep well.